diving into the end of chapter 4, and we're seeing again the progression of sin. What did sin do to mar God's creation? And it just continues to grow exponentially. So let's look at, we're seeing the breaking down of relationships between man and woman, between family structures, between communities. Let's dive in. Genesis 4:17 through 26. Cain knew his wife intimately. She became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain built a city and named the city after his son Enoch. Irad was born to Enoch. Irad fathered Mehujael. Mehujael fathered Methushael. And Methushael fathered Lamech. Lamech took two wives, the first named Ada, the second Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the ancestor of those who live in tents and own livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the ancestor of those who play stringed and wind instruments. Zillah also gave birth to Tubal-Cain, the ancestor of blacksmiths and all artisans of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to my voice. Wives of Lamech, pay attention to my words. I killed a man for wounding me, a boy for striking me. So Cain will be paid back 7 times, and Lamech 77 times. Adam knew his wife intimately again, and she gave birth to a son. She named him Seth, because God has given me another child in place of Abel, whom Cain killed. Seth also fathered a son and named him Enosh. At that time, people began to worship in the Lord's name. Okay, there's another one of those questions from last week that the text just doesn't seem to care about answering. A lot of people ask, how did Cain build a city? Where did he find his wife? And the text just doesn't give us that answer. So that's for another time. But what can we pull from the story? One question that often comes up for modern readers is this question of polygamy. Throughout the Old Testament, there's this kind of ambiguity. Does God condone polygamy? Is that a good thing? Isn't that kind of oppressive to women? What's going on here? And the way that the authors of the Bible bring up stuff like this, it doesn't come out and just condone this. It's not saying, hey, that was a really good idea. Actually, I think it's going a little deeper under the surface. You're supposed to read between the lines and say, okay, this is the first instance of polygamy, where in the beginning, God made man and woman to come together as equal partners. And now this is the first instance where a man is taking multiple wives. And it's not a good picture. Lamech is a pretty awful guy. He's saying, hey, if Cain killed one person, I killed a boy just for looking at me wrong. If Cain gets paid back 7 times, I get paid back 77 times. Like, you see this escalation and progression of sin, and Lamech does not come off as a very nice, loving guy. It's also telling that the names of Ada and Zillah, if you look into the original Hebrew, mean ornament and shadow. I just find that fascinating. So you have the first instance of polygamy, and here's this man who is so much worse than even Cain, the first murderer, taking his wives as his ornaments and shadows. It's, I think, this kind of subversive way of the narrator saying, yeah, this is not going to work out very well. And so while we wish God might come down and say, this was a bad idea, we can read between the lines and say, no, we should know that this is a bad idea. Okay, so we kind of touched on this last week, but there's this progression of sin happening. Chapter 3 is what we call the fall, right? And it was individual, 2 individuals rebelling against God, but it goes quickly into the family with Cain killing Abel, and now it's going into the whole community. Sin keeps progressing. It gets worse and worse and worse. One of the final things that kind of jumps out at me, I got to get a little nerdy here, but we're going to go back to chapter 4, verse 1, and we didn't talk about this last week, but the Hebrew behind Eve's first statement here is fascinating. She actually says, when she gives birth to Cain, this is the first woman giving birth to the first human, which would have felt like a miracle, let's be honest. And she says, I have given life to a man. This is actually a little embellishment on the original. It doesn't say with the Lord's help. It says alongside the Lord. the way that it's a little ambiguous, but I think what's going on here is Eve is a little boastful, actually. She's boasting and saying, look, in my pride, I just did something that we thought only God could do. I have given life to a man alongside the Lord. She's putting herself on a footing equal with God. And then all this pain and anguish and sin ensues. And the reason I bring that up, because it's very telling the way that she names Seth, it's like it's flipped. She's been humbled, and she's coming to the Lord and saying, I'm naming him Seth because now God has given me another child in place of Abel, whom Cain has killed. And it's after that kind of declaration, the first time people start to worship in the Lord's name. This is the name Yahweh. We'll get to that in future weeks. But just to look at that maybe we got a little deep and it's a little nerdy, but the way that Eve starts off is actually this boastful claim. I'm standing next to the Lord giving life to a man, to going through this hard moment, this pain of seeing her son kill her other son. And then when Seth comes along, she doesn't say the same phrase. She says, God has given me another child. She's giving all glory to God. And it's that kind of releases this moment in time where the people begin to worship in the Lord's name for the first time. So for me, seeing the difference between Eve's recounting of the birth of Cain versus the birth of Seth, her third son, is really fascinating as you dive deep into that, to see that first statement from Eve was probably actually a little more boastful. She's saying, I'm like God. I just created life. And can you blame her? She's the first woman to have ever done that. But then she goes through this incredible pain of seeing Cain kill her son, and the hardship and turmoil that come out of that. She is living firsthand the effect of sin in the world. And then at the end, she doesn't say the same thing. She doesn't say, I'm just like God, I created another human. She births Seth, and this time God has given me a son. She gives glory to her Creator. Is there a way that we need to do that this week? Is there a way that in my own pride and arrogance, I thought, I did this all by myself. I'm the one that built my empire, my savings account. I'm the one that led this charge, or whatever that might be. I'm the one that got that promotion. Is there a way that you've been tempted to, maybe like Eve at the beginning of the chapter, claim all glory for yourself? And how does this whole sequence lead you to give more honor and glory back to God, to say, you're ultimately the one that did this?